So let's go back to our exercise file and let's start talking about COBI. COBI stands for Construction and Operations Building Information Exchange, and it's a standardized format for sharing essential facility data that is going to be used during the handover process from the construction to facilities management. And this is what is actually at the core of the so-called digital twins and digital building operations. So in here, we're going to learn how to set it up, how to set up a model such that you can export and provide that information to others. The general process in ArchiCAD consists from the end to have an IFC translator for export that contains the necessary information, properties that is, requested by the COBI standard. So let's start by taking a look at that. Let's go to the publisher and let's start with our architectural COBI view that we have preset there for export. And let's double click on that. And you will notice that this particular view has the zones switch on because the zones will be part of the export. Now let's go and take a look at which view are we selecting. That's essentially the one on session 2. And back to our translator, you'll see that the translator in use is the IFC 2x3 COBI to export. Now let's go ahead and double check that. Let's go to File, Interoperability, IFC Translators. And let's select the COBI translator right there on the top. And from now on, we're going to set that as our preview translator, just to make sure that the information we read as we click through the model will be the one translated by these settings. Also, notice that the model view definition has been set to COBI, that the geometry conversion, property mapping, data conversion, and unit conversion is unique to the COBI standards. So let's take a quick look at that. From the standards point of view, the geometry conversion presets will be set such that the parameters set in here are compatible with regular IFC, but the information is split and divided in a way that is understood by the COBI standards. For instance, some elements will keep the hierarchy, like the curtain wall and the stair. Most of the geometry will be exported as boundary representation, that is collision, that is just the external faces of it, but no extrusions. The property mapping and the data conversion will probably be the most essential in this case. Notice that no ArchiCAD data will be directly exported and will be mostly gone through the mapping in the translator. Also note that the base quantities will be included, and most importantly, the space containment and the boundaries, where the containment will include pretty much everything that exists in the IFC format. That is, the relationship in between the elements will be driven by the spaces and not directly by the story levels. And then the actual property mapping, which will be not the standard IFC 2x3 property mapping, will be unique to the classification system we have at the moment, which is Uniclass 2015. Notice that other classification systems are also possible, but that really depends on the region and what are the standards in your country. Now, let's go and check the COBI standards we have in here. Let's start from the top and let's go to the object definition. So at the level of the object definition, there is just the standard attributes. On the IFC project, there's not much other than our custom team members. Then if you go through systems and zones, those will be requiring a classification system of some kind. And then from the level of the elements, that is anything that falls under the umbrella of elements, will be inheriting a COBI component set of parameters. This is going to be used for facilities management. The asset identifier, the installation date, a tag number, a warranty start date. Notice that in this one file, we have provided a link to the necessary ArchiCAD properties that are built in the file to populate the information. So you don't have to go through that step. Also note that for the sake of COBie in the UK, there are some additional properties included in the file. We're not going to worry about those just at the moment. Then building elements and any other elements below that will be inheriting that BIM COBie component parameter set or property set that it was given at the level of the IFC element. So anywhere below that, door or anything else will be inheriting those, at least those 4, 5 if we include the UK parameter there. So meaning that those, let's say 4 parameters from now on will have to be populated in the file in order for us to produce a COBie compliant file. Now let's check the types. And types are these green. So these are the type objects. These are the ones that are grouping the different elements into different chunks. And same thing will happen at this level. Most of the COBie information happens to be at the type level, not at the instance level. So in here, you're going to have a number of additional parameters: the COBie asset, replacement cost, service life, individual type specification, and warranty information. Now, notice that even though at this level the information is not being linked, once you go down to the level of type product, they are actually linked to information in the form of ArchiCAD properties that exist inside the file. Let's close this and close this. And not as relevant, but just as important will be the unit conversion, which in the case of the translator, it just needs a number of specific units: millimeters, square meters, degrees, and so on. Let's make sure that you leave these IFC COBie 2x3 as the set preview for us to keep working on this. Now, parallel to that, as you notice, there is going to be a set of ArchiCAD properties that are dedicated for COBie only. So if we search for COBie in here, you'll find out that there are COBie properties that are assigned for spaces, and they really depend on the uniclass classification. So this means that in order for those elements to grab the link to the values in the ArchiCAD property manager, you will need to classify the elements in the uniclass system. And also note that this is set to different tables. So this will be the spaces table, SL. The type properties will be dedicated to products, elements, and systems. COBie components, parameters will be dedicated to, similarly, elements or functions, products, and systems. And then you have 2 additional ones that we're not really going to use in this exercise, which are the UK only type of properties. Now, notice that none of these, if any, is an expression. So these values will have to be input by someone in a manual way. We will propose that this should be done and can be done easy by exporting the ArchiCAD properties out to an Excel spreadsheet or similar and then be populated outside. But the most important thing to begin with is to make sure that you understand where the information is coming from and how to populate it. So let's click on OK. And now that we have that IFC translator as the preset, you can do a quick test. Let's select this space out here. Let's first go to the settings. And let's review the classifications and properties to start with. And notice that this has not been classified under uniclass. So let's start with that. Let's classify that. and go directly to the spaces table. So spaces and locations are located in the SL table right there. And let's say we look for SL underscore roof space. And you'll find, let's say, these roof surface spaces or similar. Let's say we classify that as such. And now being classified, the file should have been inherited the Kobe properties that we need to worry about in order to be exported. So this is going to have a room tag, which we don't have currently, plus the Kobe spaces for the UK. Similarly, these should have now inherited the ArchiCAD and IFC properties that you can see right there. Click on OK.